Welcome to IBECC. We're very glad that you're here. And this is the 30-minute presentation portion. This is your first presentation, and then you'll have a 10-minute and a 90-second tomorrow. I'll introduce myself, and then our judges will do the same. My name is Jim Arnold. I'm from the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I don't know if any of you have been to Minnesota, but do come and visit us, but not in January, not in February, or of course you're from Wyoming. I understand that.
Never come visit us.
Yes, exactly. I am a professor, like I say, and I'm in the management department there. We integrate ethics into everything that we teach at St. Thomas. So I've been with IBECC now for about 6 years as a judge. So again, welcome, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Fabulous. My name is Maria Sonnen. I am with Compliance Week, which is a publication that specializes in compliance, funny enough. And I've been with Compliance Week for a little over a year. Previous to that, I was with the Ethics and Compliance Officer Association for many, many years.
And
She's the exact same story, ditto.
No, today is my second day.
Second day,
last week,
yes.
And Mr. Mazer, who was our former leader.
Esteemed leader, yes, but we're going to judge you even more harshly because of that.
Please do.
Good.
Please do.
I'm just kidding. It won't affect us all.
Okay, we in order to keep the playing field level, we read the exact same statement to every single team, so you probably know this already, but I'm going to read this to you. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. So we're going to ask you before we get started to tell us exactly what role we are playing. And so please make sure everyone knows who you are and who we are. You'll have 25 minutes plus about a 5-minute cushion to give your presentation. Once about 25 minutes goes off, I will just give you the 5-minute notice, and you'll have 5 minutes to wrap up. And that's to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions. During this time, we will not be interrupting you. You will get a chance to just keep talking, and we'll have our chance to talk to you about what we want during the Q&A, which will last about 20 minutes after that. Now, we're going to stay in our fictional role during Q&A as well. So, and you're going to stay in your role as Q&A. After Q&A is over, that's when we'll all take our masks off, and we will become plain old judges, and you'll go back to being plain old students, and we'll give you some feedback on how you did, and you can ask us any questions that you would like. At this point, do you happen to have any questions?
No,
Okay,
sir.
again, welcome, good luck.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. We are Boston Consulting, and my name is Maddie. This is Kenny, Kale, Meg, and Stephen. And today you will be acting as the board of directors for Tyson Food as we discuss the effects of climate change due to animal agriculture. We've provided you with pamphlets to follow along with as we go and to refer back to if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Well, first, we're going to explain the problems that are facing Tyson Foods with animal agriculture today. And second, we're going to analyze the problem from 3 different dimensions: legal, financial, and ethical. And third, we're going to offer you a multi-faceted solution that will give you the ability to maximize and address and resolve these problems. So, political and business leaders all around the world gathered in Paris 4 months ago to reach a goal on reducing climate change and helping address this issue. Additionally, the World Bank addressed on April 7th that they would be contributing 28% of their investments to climate change projects, such as like reducing world temperatures by 2 degrees by the year 2030. And we would too many people are talking about the fact that animal agriculture is the #1 contributor to greenhouse gases. Animal agriculture contributes 18 to 24% of all greenhouse gas emissions. These greenhouse gas emissions that we're going to be telling you about today include carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, which are listed in the chemical structures up here on the slide for you. Here's our pie graph showing you all the other aspects of greenhouse gases. So most people talk about carbon dioxide, and that's their biggest worry. It shouldn't be the biggest worry. It is though, because it lasts longest in the atmosphere. It can be absorbed quickly through the ocean surface or through plants, or others stay in the atmosphere for up to thousands of years. But ultimately, only 9% of global CO2 is used in animal agriculture, or is contributed to animal agriculture. On the other hand, global methane is 35% contribution due to animal agriculture and has an atmospheric lifespan of 12 years. This means it stays in the atmosphere for a short amount of time and is affecting it deeply. Also, methane, 20 to 100 times more destructive than carbon in the atmosphere, and cows produce 150 billion gallons of methane per day. And then we have nitrous oxide, where 65% of global nitrous oxide is contributed by animal agriculture and has an atmospheric lifespan of 114 years. And nitrous oxide has 296 times the global warming potential than carbon does. Later on today, Meg will talk to you about the effects of animal agriculture through human health and depletion of natural resources like deforestation, land use, water use, and species extinction. And now I'll pass it over to Kenny to talk about the legal dimension.
Thanks, Maddie. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to describe the legal dimensions that Tyson will go through. I'll discuss the United Nations Climate Change Conference that happened in Paris. I'll talk about the laws and regulations that currently are affecting Tyson. I'll talk about the potential loss of favorable subsidies and the current court case happening in New York. As for first, the United Nations Climate Change Conference happened late last year in Paris. The United States was one of 185 companies that signed a legally binding framework that committed each country to limit Earth's temperature increase by 2 degrees by 2030. Each country has their own way of meeting these goals and have their own standards. So every 5 years, they're challenged by this conference to reevaluate their goals and reiterate new ways to make their goal more challenging for themselves. The United States has already announced that it wants to reduce its greenhouse gases by 26 to 28% of the 2005 levels by 2025. To achieve our goal, or the United States' goal, not only will they go after fossil fuels, but they'll also go after your industry, which is the #1 greenhouse emitter of animal agriculture. Some of the current laws and regulations that Tyson faces is the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act. This was created in 1992, and it gives the U.S. Department of Justice greater authority to target animal rights activists. In 1992, it was outlined that it's illegal to interfere with the promotion and the sale of beef. So, in 2006, it was also amended to increase the existing penalties, as well as those penalties were based on the amount of economic damage caused. The second regulation that is really prominent to Tyson is the ag-gag laws. And these are state laws that were created in 1990 and are still changing in the world today. They prohibit the making of undercover videos, photographs, and sound recordings of agricultural operations. This should not only concern animal protection activists, but also anyone whose actions or speech, even truthful, cause financial damage or other harm to the agricultural business. Now you wonder why we would bring up such a law that protects your business, but we need to be, in the new age of transparency that is coming in the direction, we believe that these laws are very unethical and controversial, and we feel like they will be dissolved recently. So if they're no longer protecting your company, you need to know which laws you can count on, which you cannot. So next I want to talk about the potential loss of favorable subsidies. Last year, the U.S. state and federal government spent roughly $38 billion subsidizing the meat and dairy industry, but only 0.04% of that, which is $17 million, was subsidizing fruits and vegetables. As public policy decision makers, we realize the impact of animal agriculture on climate change, and they may quickly reduce these subsidies out from underneath you. This time is so delicate that the federal and state governments are scrambling to find any unnecessary expenditures of these subsidies, and they spend an additional $414.8 billion annually on animal agriculture related costs. As you can see from this graph, which is also in your booklet, the These are all the external costs that pertain to animal food production in the billions. So here's your 38.4 billion in subsidies. But some of the other external costs that may be cut as well are the environmental costs and the healthcare costs. So lastly, I want to talk about the court case that's happening in New York City currently. So recently, minutes late last year were released by in a meeting that happened in the early 1980s in a board meeting with ExxonMobil board of directors. And these minutes show that they know about the proof of climate change and the scientific proof, which they later on publicly denied the truth. And they also secretly funded these AstroTurf NGOs that would independently release information saying that that information was not true, and then they could just fall back on that. So it is a SEC violation to not identify a risk known to the industry to the shareholders. So the state attorney took those and is bringing up criminal charges upon ExxonMobil for not disclosing this. Now that you, as the board of directors, know about the climate change and how the truthfulness behind it, you can, if you do not disclose this information, knowing that it's going to harm the industry, it could harm the industry to the shareholders, you could face similar legal pressure from other places because of this case not disclosing that information. So we do not want that. And we hope you develop a business strategy that you can explain that to your shareholders, and we can all move forward in the new age of transparency. And now I'll hand it over to Kale to talk about the financial dimensions.
Thank you, Kenny. As you can see, Tyson Foods Incorporated is a top shareholder within all three of these industries: beef, chicken, and pork. And it comes as no surprise. You are all a household name. From when I was growing up, I ate Tyson Foods. I can easily recognize the brand, and I agree that everyone here can. But what I would like to also point out is that Cargill, one of your top competitors, a privately owned company, they also hold a reputable share within two of the industries, beef and pork. But after the Paris Agreement, they publicly made a statement coming out saying that they are going to reduce their carbon footprint. And so here we are today. See, beef has been very, very profitable for Tyson Foods, and it accounts for approximately 42% of your company's revenue. And your typical economist would say, hey, specializing in what you're best at is completely efficient. But our firm has reason to believe that relying so heavily on one unit of production could prove detrimental to your company's revenue and overall profit. The reason for this decrease is there has been a significant decrease in the consumption of red meat. In 1971, the consumption of red meat per capita per year was at 104.4 pounds of beef. Today, we're at a measly 68.9 pounds. See, in the last 10 years alone, that decrease has been a 15.5 pound decrease. And the reason being, when you take our population and you look at people who are health conscious, environmentally conscious, and empathetic toward animal treatment, you have the majority of our citizens. And so with that number 15.5, if you multiply that by our nation's population, you'll see there have been 501.4 million fewer pounds of beef consumed per year. And over those last 10 years, where I took that number of 15.5 pounds, I averaged out the price of beef, came to about $4.78 a pound. And so you would see that the beef market has seen a $2.36 billion loss in revenue alone just in the last 10 years. And given Tyson's 24% share of that market, we've pegged your revenue loss every single year at $57.5 million. Now, why are we targeting only beef here? Why not chicken? Why not pork? Well, the reason being is that the land attributed to the animal agriculture industry accounts for 90% of the entire animal agriculture land use for beef and cattle production. And not only that, but the land irrigated for the feed and the grain and the cows involved uses up 3 times as much water as pork, dairy, and poultry combined. These are all valuable resources. And it should be noted that dairy cows require much less grain and much less water to produce their goods because they're not being fattened up for the consumption of copious amounts of meat. But along with this annually foregone revenue, we found just one facet of the increased production costs within your industry, and that is solely due to water. We're all well aware that the price of water, especially commercially, has risen. So I found that your largest cattle production farm is in Texas, and did a little bit of research and found that per 1,000 gallons of water, paying approximately $6.40. It may not seem like that much right now, but given that it takes a little bit over 2,600 gallons of water per pound of beef from grain to cow to produce that pound of beef, this would mean that a pound of beef is just costing you a little under $17 in water costs alone. But thankfully, as consumers and producers of this beef, when we're driving through our local food chain, we don't have to foot that bill directly, but within our taxes, we are doing so. And as Kenny was saying, you know, these sizable subsidies that you've been awarded, and very favorable subsidies, you know, there's going to be outward pressure from this movement that will be picking up with climate change and the societal movement to diminish these subsidies, if not completely eradicate them. And so, given that these subsidies will go away, the cattle farmers will face higher production costs, and these costs will be forwarded onto you, be it a fraction or its entirety. And we know Tyson Foods is #1, the top competitor within the industry. We want you to stay that way. So we're going to be proposing some alternative solutions to keep you ahead of the game and get you that momentum to keep you up there. Now I'm going to hand it over to Meg to discuss the ethical implications.
Thank you, Kale. So there are many ethical dimensions to this problem. We do want to acknowledge that there is another side to this issue. There are many benefits of consuming meat, and there are many benefits to the animal agricultural business. But for this specifically, we will be focusing more on the detrimental effects. When it comes to animal agriculture, there are negative effects on not only humans directly, but the environment as a whole. We pinpointed 4 major health concerns associated with animal agriculture. The first one being cancer. The World Health Organization, or the WHO, recently released a report, noting that eating 50 grams of processed meat a day, which is the equivalent of less than 2 slices of bacon, can increase your chances of colorectal cancer by 18%. And given the severity of this, they've actually categorized processed meat as a type 1 carcinogen. Given that cancer negatively affects the world, reevaluating the way that we eat could benefit us in many ways. Second, obesity. Eating processed meat does have an effect on obesity as well. It has been a growing problem for the past decade, and eating processed meat does only expand that problem. Third, heart disease. The Framingham Heart Study that was done actually just 7 miles away from where we're sitting right now found that the average meat eater's cholesterol is at 194 versus the average vegan's cholesterol at 146. And vegans have 2.5 fewer cardiac problems than meat eaters. Fourth, global premature mortality. In an Oxford University study, it was found that if we were to go vegan right now, by 2050 we will have avoided 8.1 million deaths and saved 129 million life years. Now, the ethical dimension, like I said, is not only to humans, it is to us as a planet as well. I think we can all agree that we want the planet to stay around for as long as possible. And it is our moral and ethical obligation to not only leave the planet in the condition that it was handed down to us, but to improve upon the condition if we have the resources available, which we do. So we have pinpointed 5 major concerns. First, climate change. As you heard from Maddie earlier, 18 to 24% of all greenhouse gas emissions are due to animal agriculture alone. Second, deforestation. 1 to 2 acres of land are cleared every second, and 91% of all Amazon deforestation is due to animal agriculture. To put this into perspective for you, this is us losing a piece of land the size of Massachusetts each year. Third, water use. As Kale described it a little bit, 1 pound of beef does cost 2,600 gallons of water. And to put that into perspective a little more, your average quarter-pound burger costs 660 gallons of water to produce. Animal agriculture uses 1/3 of the Earth's fresh water for these productions of its byproducts. Fourth, species extinction. 110 animal and insect species are lost every day. And 3/4 of the world's fisheries are exploited. Fifth, land use. Animal agriculture covers 45% of the world. And after this land is used for the production of its products and byproducts, 1/3 of it is left desertified, making it unusable for several years. Now, getting into the rights, duties, and obligations of you as the board of directors at Tyson, we do have some things to consider. Given that we live in an age of transparency and there's a growing number of progressive attitudes towards the animal rights industry, you guys do have a duty to protect your consumers. But you do also have a duty to stay true to your core values, which are noted just right here. Now, when developing these solutions to the problem, we did take both aspects into account, and Stephen will start to discuss the solutions to the problem.
Thanks, Meg. So, as Meg was mentioning, not only does the age of transparency matter for you guys, but also the values that you have listed on your website and you hold true to yourself should help accommodate some of these recommendations that we put forth. Now, not only do these things play an important role to you guys, but these inevitable industry changes will affect the way that you're doing business in the past. Okay, so first, we recommend that you acquire a plant-based meat alternative company. 2, we recommend that you invest in a company that has been successful in making cultured or vitro meat in the laboratory. And finally, we're going to recommend solutions towards an aggressive marketing strategy so you can not only promote those newly acquired products, but you can also rebrand Tyson Foods as a leader in sustainability within the animal agriculture industry. So after looking at a few different plant-based meat alternative companies, we found that Beyond Meat not only has the best tasting meat analogs, but they are the leader and have the most experience in this new industry. So they began selling products in 2013, and they now distribute to Whole Foods, Walmart, Safeway, and many other very reputable grocers. So not only do their board of directors include the former CEO and president of the McDonald's Corporation and the CEO of Honesty, some notable investors include the Twitter co-founders and also Bill Gates, who when he tried the chicken said he could not tell the difference between Beyond Meat and real chicken. Now, some of the products listed here are their first products that they came out with, but if you turn your page over in your booklet, you'll see all those other products that they have listed right now. Now, their chicken and beef, they turn this mixture by using an extruder machine. Now, the ingredients that they use are mostly soy and pea proteins. This extruder machine has been around for many years, and it usually involves processed foods. And so it's been used for Cheetos and pre-made cookie dough and other ingredients like that. But what Beyond Meat has done is they're able to put these ingredients into the extruder machine and create a texture that resembles exactly like meat. So the one product that really turned our heads, and we know that a lot of people like you are turning yours heads to this product, is called the Beast Burger. Now, this Beast Burger is soy-free, it's vegan, it's gluten-free, and it has more protein than beef. It has more iron than steak. It has more calcium than milk. It has more omega-3s than salmon. And it has more antioxidants than berries. So not only is this one of the healthiest things that you can eat, it tastes exactly like a hamburger. And so this product is in direct competition with your traditional meat right now. And not only does it offer better value to the customer, Beyond Meat is much more cost effective because they're able to produce this by just using the ingredients in an extruder machine. Now, Your second recommendation is investing in a company that has produced cultured meat. Now what they do here is they take cow and pig cells, they produce those and make those into muscle fibers and then put them into steel tanks. This takes around 9 to 21 days, and these steel tanks replace the absurd amount of resources that you guys are using right now to produce traditional meat. Now, the Memphis Meats was founded by 3 scientists, and they've done a lot with the $2 million investment that they were given. So they are aiming to bring their products to the market within 3 to 4 years. And these scientists, along with many others, believe that they can replace these cells that they use right now, which is from a fetal bovine serum, and they can replace that with a plant alternative. And so if they're successful in doing this, there's no need for antibiotics, which puts culture meat a huge step advantage above traditional meat, especially in society today. So their product line will include hot dogs, sausages, hamburgers, and meatballs. And the meatball that you see in Memphis Meat's picture right there on the booklet is actually the meatball that they made. You can check out their first sampling to consumers on their website, and they got very positive reviews. So we feel very confident about this company. Now, we're not saying that Tyson has to strictly switch everything over and go to meat analogs and cultured meat. But we are suggesting the fact that every single day that they don't, you're losing out on operational efficiency. So let's look at these two compared. With the meat analog, specifically Beyond Meat, 1 pound of Beyond Meat takes 1.1 pounds of ingredients and 2 liters of water. When you compare that to traditional meat, 7.5 pounds of dry feed and 30 liters of water just make 1 pound. The numbers are even more staggering with beef. With 100 grams of vegetable protein given to the cow, only 15 grams of animal protein come out of that. Now, cultured meat virtually can be made indefinitely. And theoretically, the system is not in place for commercial use, but theoretically, as scientists prove, 2 months of cultured meat from 10 pork cells could produce 50,000 tons of meat. Now, if this is possible, it will destroy the traditional meat industry overnight. No matter how consumers feel about cultured meat today, it will be overwhelmingly hard to ignore the price per pound once they can produce 50,000 tons of meat. Now, along with cultured meat, you would be using 99.7% less land. You'd be using 94% less water, and you'd be emitting 98.8% less GHGs. Now, marketing these products with your traditional products will be tough, but we want to lay out a perfect strategy for you. If you turn back to the very end of your booklet right now, we have highlighted some strategies that you can see where Tyson's name can be on the back, and it's actually on the very back where the plastic is. So labeling these meat analogs with how many GHGs you're averting will really gain trust and integrity within your consumer base. And this type of honesty will really put you a step above everyone else. Our next marketing strategy that we suggest is setting the non-meat products that you own next to the meat products. Now, this is not a radical idea, and it actually contributes to the 500% increase in soy milk and the 250% increase in almond milk. And the companies that were influential in getting that changed was the dairy companies who bought the soy and almond milk companies and influenced the grocers to put them next to their own products. So it worked within the dairy industry, and we expect it to work within the Tyson industry. Not only will putting these products next to them involve exposing your new products to customers that would not see them, but it will allow them to compare these two products. So some incentives to respond now. Beyond Meat, Memphis Meat, and other companies are successful, and they're planning on growing quickly. It's better to be a part of their success and rather compete with them. Acting to slow climate change will not only benefit your public image, but it will also help relieve some of these day-to-day operations that climate change affects on your operational side every single day. You can market and produce meat analogs that taste similar to the products that you have now. They're easier to cook, they're less expensive, and they're healthier than livestock products. And you already have the necessary infrastructure in place. You have the processing and growing grains, and And you eliminate a lot of the business risk that a lot of other companies are going to face when they try to introduce themselves into this market. The risks as business as usual outweigh the risks of change at this point. Now, the problem that we are describing is no longer a public policy issue or an ethical issue, it's also a business issue. We believe that the recommendations that we've set forth are the best, most practical, and most effective solutions for Tyson Foods' future. The business case for diverting from animal agriculture is clear and should not only appeal to you as board members, but appeal to customers and investors. This is a very ethical and sustainable business practice. We at Boston Consulting would like to thank you. If you have any questions, this would be the point to ask them. Thank you.
Okay, 27 minutes and 34 seconds, so you definitely got in. Thank you very much. That was such an enlightening presentation. I will start with a question and then move on to my colleagues and their questions as well. All kinds of really, really interesting data. I mean, just so interesting. The one issue that I'm curious about, and as a board member I'm thrilled about, is that the United States is a huge meat-eating kind of, old boy, if you will, even a sexist term there, kind of, that sort of thing. And those kind of things are pretty hard to get around in the culture here. So I'd like you to address that issue, and I'd also like you to address what are some benchmarks that we can use. Is anything going on in Europe that we might use because sometimes things will start in Europe and we might copy that. So that's kind of a lot of questions right there. So I'll just let you respond.
I agree with you that we do have that kind of traditional feel, but as Kale mentioned earlier, we are declining in our flavor for beef. There's the recommended solutions that we do place in front of us. Hopefully these meat analogs taste very similar, and they also are healthier. I think this transparency of, okay, how healthy are the things that I'm putting into my body? The title of our presentation is called Ethics, It's What's for Dinner, and that's because of the marketing strategies that were put in place to feel like we needed to eat beef. That's not the case anymore today. So meat analogs ideally will be healthier for you and taste very similar, so your consumers will not lose out on that. If cultured meat actually pulls through and your investment actually pays off, then there would be no need that people could eat the meat that they love, and they also could ethically eat it.
What benchmarks, are there any benchmarks we can draw from other countries, what benchmarks do you have out there for us?
So there's not necessarily any specific benchmarks. This is kind of the age of transparency, and these progressive attitudes are kind of sparking this interest. Within the next 10 years, maybe even sooner, the meat industry is going to face a huge problem dealing with all of these concerns. So there hasn't really been a whole lot. I mean, obviously the companies that do exist that are starting to create these benchmarks, Beyond Meat and the other ones that we did mention, they are kind of starting the benchmark here. As far as in Europe and other countries, there's not necessarily anything that's being done as far as our knowledge.
I would just like to add, though, that it's pretty well known fact that the United States of America is the most obese country in the world. So I mean, they're already doing a lot better than we are in terms of ethics, in terms of health, human health.
And you were right about your previous statement. In terms of how much beef we eat in the United States, we eat around 9 ounces a day, which is way above anywhere else in the world. And so if you are looking at other countries, they have not exceeded to the point where we are in trouble at this point. For not only Tyson Foods in terms of the sustainable nature of actually feeding all these people, but also what this is doing to our environment at the same time.
My colleagues?
I would like to ask, what would be our cost implications and what would be a timeline for us to take on that plan? Have you thought about that? What would be the short-term goals and long-term goals, and how long would that take?
Yes, definitely. Well, see, Beyond Meat is already gaining that momentum. Okay, so they're already out on the market. And I was actually in contact with one of the fellows there in charge, and because they are a privately owned company, they were not able to give me a number. but estimating because they're pretty new, so they're small now, so that's why you should snag them up while you can. Put that Tyson brand name on there. And then, so, you know, a timeline for Beyond Meat, I would say hop on it as fast as you can, because it, like I said, it is gaining that momentum. Memphis Meats, however, will not be ready, as Steven said, for 3 to 5 years. But, you know, directly investing into that company, helping them start that, you can even cut that timeline in half. Now, figure-wise, because they're so private, we could not get anything out of them. But you're Tyson Foods, you're a big company, and the reason you're #1 is because you're so competitive, and we know you wouldn't want to partner with them, that you would want to essentially acquire them and directly invest into Memphis Meats.
Have you thought about any solutions on the actual animal food production as to how we can address that problem and ways to decrease of the emissions that we're sending in the atmosphere?
There's definitely ways to mitigate it, and there's definitely ways to reduce the emissions being put out. You know, there's you can feed the cows different grains, but those grains require more water, and so now you're going up on that scale. In terms of sustainability, there's no way. I mean, right now, animal agriculture accounts for 45% of the Earth's land. If we are projected to increase the world population to 9 billion people, then we can't, there's no way. We're gonna have to find a solution where we can all eat some source of protein and it becomes sustainable for all of us.
So I have a question here in this manufactured meat. It's a little scary to me.
Yes, it is.
Because, you know, I am just anticipating the risk if we purchase this company and 10 years from now, we find out that, you know, people are dying because of it, because of some crazy side effect. I mean, this is so new, you know, I think you even said that we can't even buy them yet. So how do we know this is safe? And will people actually trust this?
And that was a big concern that we had, and that's why we didn't offer for you to acquire the company. And it is a very new and undervalued industry. The 3 to 4 year mark is strictly because of the FDA. In order to do this, they have to go through the procedures to make sure that it is safe. They can produce the meat right now, but the types of hoops that you have to jump through in order to do this. Now, in terms of the cringe that you get and a lot of other people think when they think about the Frankenstein food effect, if you can buy a hamburger for 10 cents, and the other hamburger from traditional meat, the subsidy's gone, costs about $42, then I guarantee you most of your consumers are really going to jump past that pretty quickly. And especially if antibiotics aren't involved, which is becoming a huge issue for people that like to buy meat or organic foods. They realize the dangers behind antibiotics. If we can offer a meat that is exactly the same as the beef that is produced now without antibiotics, and the only difference is that it's produced in steel tanks, clean steel tanks, besides the ones that the infrastructure that's put in place today, I think consumers are going to turn around pretty quickly.
Well, I have a follow-up on that then. So let's go back to the one that's actually vegetables instead of meat. So you say that Bill Gates said it tastes great, I can't even tell the difference. But do you have actual data that shows that, you know, out of 100 people, 50 people feel the same way?
We actually all had dinner together and ate them. And they were pretty good to me. I couldn't really tell a difference. I mean, when you're looking at it, you can see the beans and the corn in it, but it doesn't taste any different. Texture is similar.
The chicken that we had was actually breaded as well. So it's like, you'd think that like these products would be such different in consistency and texture and stuff, but when we brought that in and we ate it, we couldn't even tell. But it's like, you would think if something's so healthy and vegan and stuff, like why would they bread it? Why would they do that? But it's just goes to show you the, like...
Going the extra mile to make it better for consumers.
And in terms of taste, I think that it's been a well-known fact within the plant-based meat alternative business is that taste and look, they've already mastered that. It comes down to texture here. And I think that has taken a number of years to kind of solidify and get down, and that's why this extruder machine is kind of revolutionary, and we said acquire Beyond Meat because they've been in the business for so long. it's going to take a while to master that type of texture. And that's really the only difference when we've seen consumers respond to plant-based alternatives is strictly the texture. And that's the only thing that is the most important for not only Tyson's Foods, but Beyond Meat as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
In a world of GMO is scary, and in a world of the movement of I would never want to, I would like everything to be marked with whatever it's genetically modified, and I just don't want to consume that. How this would really make money if we invest in this, and then they have to go to that route, because that's the current movement. Is we all know that things are being labeled, people looking for the non-GMOs and all of that. How would we fight that current, because we are not only we have to invest a lot in order to make this profitable and to change people's minds that they should consume more vegetables and less real meat, I guess. So how do you even?
I think. Sorry, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
I think that these are mostly soy-based, and so the plants that you're feeding cows are soy-based as well, and so you're going to run into that problem either way. I think that if you do take out your heaviest expenditure, which is the actual cow and the farmers and the water that you are needing to pay for all of this, you give a lot more attention to, okay, let's focus our attention on the soybeans that we've been feeding cows for the last, since the beginning of time, and we can focus on making that our main focus, because that directly correlates to how the quality of our product is, the end result of our product.
And I would like to bounce off of that. What it could all come down to is your consumer base. And if you have a bold marketing campaign that really educates the consumers about what they are consuming, which is essentially what they want with labeling the GMOs on their products. They want to know what they're eating. And if you tell them that it's soy and pea protein powder, and that it's saving the environment, and they're going to be healthier in the long run, and they know what they're ingesting, I think you'll be just fine.
Well, I'll just turn it back again on the soy part of this whole thing. You do know that there's tons of recent data that shows that soy is actually, in the long term, is not in fact healthy, and it can drastically affect on cancer, and more specifically on animals. So how would you be fighting that?
And definitely, and that was a risk that we definitely weighed into our analysis. In terms of the World Health Organization, they have highlighted the facts that beef and other meat is actually way more harmful for you than soy is. But the reason why we chose Beyond Meat is because of this beast burger, and it doesn't actually contain soy. And so I think that is something that you need to look at in terms of the future. Is maybe right now soy and pea proteins are your main sources, but I think pea protein is where you're going to find the best value and the most nutritional value for your products.
Any other questions?
I did. Let me see. Once we get this product, how are we going to start with our? This is disruptive innovation. This is not just innovation. And disruptive innovation is cool, but you really have a lot of work to do to make this disruptive innovation work. How are we going to lay out this whole promotional plan?
Well, Stephen mentioned at the end of the presentation about lining up the new meat, like not meat products, with your old meat products. So I mean, you can just have them based with, Stephen can touch on that a little bit more, but that was our initial idea.
It creates a huge problem, and you're kind of hypocritical in a little bit. That first little stage of initiating it. But I think, as I stated, the business as usual outweighs the risks of change at this point. You want to be the company, as Tyson, the sustainability leader. As business people, where do you see your company in 10 years? Where do you see these facts being placed on you as business individuals? And are you going to be the company, you're going to be the organization that we're the first people to step up and say, listen, we have a problem here. We know that our products are causing harm to people and the environment. We know that you still want traditional beef, and we will be offering that to you, but we are responsible, and we are offering other alternatives that are healthier for you and for the environment.
So One thing that is important to us as directors is to be conscientious of all of our stakeholders. All right, we have employees that we employ in these plants. What's going to happen when we're laying them off? If you can make, the same amount of beef in a steel barrel that they can make in 15 plants, what's going to happen to them? And what about our relationship with the farmers? We spent a really long time developing these relationships with our farmers. I see this as being a huge impact on that.
Well, in the past, Tyson is not very well liked in terms of who they employ. Recently, a Supreme Court justice just approved a $5.5 million lawsuit against Tyson because the employees were in harmful conditions and they got exposed to some things that they weren't supposed to. By opening this new division, you are creating employment that are not harmful conditions. You're actually promoting your industry and saying, we know that some of the conditions that we put our employees under are harmful, and we are offering a solution to a much more skillful position. Now, cultured meat will lower your employee base, but I think you as board directors would like that. And also, these positions will also be more intensive and more skillful for them. And so I think by offering these new employment positions, you recharge your brand image a little bit, especially what will happen in the next couple months with the Supreme Court case that you're facing.
I would also like to add, if, like you said, you're right, you put in so much time and effort into developing the company that you wanted, and you were like where it's at. Say you don't do anything, if you think back to that court case, we're still waiting the results to see what happens. It's a SEC violation to not identify those known risks. So say you don't do anything at all in anything, there's a chance that you're still going to get sued, just like that. ExxonMobil.
Even more so if they know you came and talked to us.
Yes.
You're almost more liable now.
I'm not sure why we set this meeting up, to be honest.
You were never here.
That's not very ethical.
Do we have any more questions, judges? Okay, we're going to move into stage 3, but first we're going to give you our names. Now we are taking off our costumes, and so are you, and so we are just judges.
Shoes.
You can take off your shoes, you can do whatever you want.
No, my shoes.
Yeah, that's
okay.
over. I'd just like to start by saying that I've been a judge for IBECC now for about 6 years, and I vary back and forth between undergrad divisions and grad divisions, and I have to say that for a moment here, I forgot that I was in the undergrad division. You are doing graduate work. It was so professional and so well done that in terms of identifying all the variables and all, I literally thought, oh wait a minute, these are graduate students. These are what I would teach because I teach graduate school. So I just want to say that you're way above and beyond typical undergrads.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Beyond me.
So I'll start with that. I have more, but go ahead.
Sure. So I was also very, very impressed. I thought this was great.
Yeah.
I have not been a judge forever and ever, but I mean.
And this was outstanding.
I was very impressed. I think even as a board of directors, if you were a true management company and you came in with something, like this, it would definitely be a plus. I really liked that you thought about the whole marketing that you look for. You made it easy for the board to say, oh, okay, I can visually see what this would look like rather than just being, afraid. I think that you did a good job setting up both the, the impacts on health as well as the impacts on the climate and the impacts on resources and limited resources. In terms of a few things, I definitely think that it would have been great for you to have acknowledged the multi-stakeholder, because you were talking a lot about the overall globe and the consumer, but I think companies have they definitely think about more more than that. And especially a company like Tyson that does have such a tight relationship with their suppliers, then, and oftentimes a supplier, they will supply to just one company. So the reputational risk that a Tyson looks at is not just the reputational risk of Joe going to the supermarket. It's much bigger than that. And they're often, you know, they're in rural areas and they're tight communities. So I think that that would have been important. But I love the fact also that you came and said, here's some alternative companies we can buy. You knew about them, you knew where they were in their FDA process, etc. I thought that was really, really, really great, and that's a great option to give a board, that instead of trying to invent an industry, they can acquire it. So I thought that was a very smart idea.
We could acquire it if we want and not brand it and see how it goes. Back away from it and not have our name tarnished.
That's true.
So,
Right.
although branding's a great thing, but sometimes, you gotta try things without
And that's what the
branding.
dairy companies have done. You know,
Yeah.
you go to the dairy aisle and you don't see the same brands for
Right.
soy and almond milk because they were established prior.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
just following up on that, I did like a lot of the comparison with the dairy industry because they did that, and it's nice to see
It's good.
where the direction that it's been positive, affecting positively to the consumer and the actual companies. And I did appreciate all the background and historical facts and the information you provided. You seemed very well prepared on that front. Something that I wish I saw was the timeline of what would take us to implement those changes. But I do appreciate the moral and ethical obligation that you over and over said that we have that, and and now that you present it, I guess the company's acquired. But so it was a great case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think, I also teach presentation skills at St. Thomas, so I'm just gonna comment on that as well, beyond your topic, which you all covered very well. Very, very nice job. There are two people in your group that I hope that in their next venture will be sure to include public speaking, and that is these gentlemen here. You speak with, and I want to say you're all good. You speak with a level of...
We're not.
You speak with a level of knowledge and wisdom that I try to get my students to say. I say, if I could come up with a word to describe you as a speaker, I want the word to be wise. And you both came across as wise. So
I'm glad we came across that.
you did.
And can I add to that?
Please.
And personable.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Kale.
Kale. So when Kale started, I don't remember exactly what he said, but my feeling was, oh, he's identifying with me.
Yep.
Right? On like I think he said something about how.
We all know Tyson.
We all have Tyson.
I ate it when I was, that was my first food I ever ate. That kind of thing. That's really, really good when you're giving
Right, very smart.
presentations. Very, very smart.
Very-
Eye contact.
Yeah.
As much as you can bring it back to yourself and say, myself, by the way, blah, blah, blah. So
Right.
you're building individual rapport with your audience, which is wonderful. Is your school color purple?
No, brown and gold.
Okay.
Is that coincidence we're all wearing purple today?
Not a coincidence.
Not a
We wanted to
coincidence.
keep
Mix it up a little
Okay,
bit.
okay.
like a consulting.
See,
Look
yeah.
professional.
That's fine. No, St. Thomas's color is that purple, so I was.
Oh, yeah.
Were you-
Brown and gold.
Got you.
Are you talking to the judge here?
We did
or
some
what?
more extensive research.
No, I just want you to know that this was a pleasure to watch. It was a privilege to be able to get that information from you. I feel like we all, not only just as judges, I think we all learned some things that we can look forward to. So thank you very, very much.
Although, wait, before we clap, one more thing. Really, really, really great. Really good use of ExxonMobil. Because nothing scares the board of directors more than to hear that there's a lawsuit and to potentially come to them. And then linking to what's happening with the climate change conferences and everything. That was really, really good. So, now.
Very good.